No more search engine puns right here, just snap judgments that are on the podcast with Bill Landis, Jeremy Birmingham, and I am Austin Ward. Ohio State is a winner, 38-15 over Indiana. Top 5 matchup goes the way of the home team. Buckeyes remain in control of their destiny in the Big Ten race, and they bring an end to that feel-good Kurt Cignetti story that has been dominating the airwaves for the better part of the college football season. Bill, this was about all you could ask for Ohio State.
Yeah, I'm not going to do the math in my head, but Indiana had 70 yards on its first drive and finished with 151.
And they had 60 of them on the last drive.
Yeah, not bad from Ohio State's defense. Because I think that's a really good Indiana offense that they just smothered for basically the entire game. I guess take away the first 6 minutes. The first 6 minutes. Even the last one, there were some backups in there.
Yeah, you don't have to take out the last one.
Yeah, so I'm not going to hold that against Ohio State much. This was an incredible performance from Ohio State's defense. And the way that the crowd got into it, I think really helped them. Both Ryan Day and Will Howard both said when Indiana had to go to a silent count, they felt like the game changed. And then I just thought you saw Ohio State's front seven just really terrorize Indiana. And after about the, second or third drive, Curtis Rourke, I think, was seeing ghosts and just really hurried up and couldn't do much. So it was a really, really impressive.
They weren't even ghosts because Cody Simon is actually a real flesh and blood.
Sometimes they were actually hitting him. Yeah, most of the time they were actually hitting him.
A lot of hits. Cody Simon, Jack Sawyer, JT Tuimoloau had to play there in the second half where that was the best version of him. And I think as Ohio State gets into this part of this season, that's what they're going to have to see more of. I said Bill saw everything he wanted. Berm, you're never satisfied.
I mean, this is exactly pretty much what I thought would happen. I mean, I said Indiana would not be within 3 touchdowns of Ohio State, and they weren't. Ohio State could have won this game by 5 touchdowns or 6 touchdowns, but I like when you win a game big against a good team and there's still stuff to work on. I enjoy that. If I went into coach mode, I'd want that.
Coach Berm.
He evaluated some talent in the morning.
That's right.
Now he's coaching.
That's the breakdown I want. I want to be able to be like, damn, we did everything pretty okay, and we blew them out, and now we have the biggest game of our life next weekend, and there's this and this and this to work on. So,
where does that begin for you then?
It's still to me the right side of the offensive line. I mean, obviously, when Quinshon Judkins is. And this is now not an anomaly because we've seen I think 4 games this year where he's been under 4 yards a carry for Ohio State, and that is certainly not what I think people would have expected. You can chalk some of that up, I think, to the reshuffling of the offensive line, but to me, it's the right side, and it's specifically the right guard situation has been difficult the last couple of weeks for Tegra Shabola, and I'm not sure that there's a fix for it at this point because it's a little late. But you certainly would like to see him be a little bit more physical at the point of attack and maybe being just a touch more aggressive in general. But offensively, I think sometimes it feels like Ohio State doesn't want to try to score.
I think they'd like to score.
When they try, they do.
Yeah, they want to control the game. I think that much has been evident throughout this entire year, and that was still evident today in this game. But when they flip that switch and they have to throw the ball down the field, they convert from 3rd and 35.
Yeah, but why not just flip that switch at the start? Because clearly the run game is playing off of the passing game at this point. So let's just lean into that a little bit.
I don't know. I think you have to establish it, and I think you have to build momentum and some confidence in your reworked offensive line. I get it.
I think it goes into a conversation that Ryan Day was having about pace and tempo earlier in the week. It was there's a lot of factors for that, and I think it sounds ludicrous to say it out loud that Ohio State is trying not to score too fast, but that does appear to be the way that they're approaching it because some of those factors are the length of the season, trying to stay healthy. They have reworked this offensive line. You don't want to put your defense in harm's way. You want to protect them as much as you can. And I think that Ohio State feels by and large that over the course of 60 minutes that their superior talent and athleticism is going to win out. And they were proven right in a situation like this today.
And they hit their season scoring average. They hit 38. That's what they've been averaging. Indiana was 26 points below their average. So, I mean, that's pretty good. But you look at it and you're like, well, you feel like you could just do more with this offense.
They just beat.
I didn't feel that today.
I'm just saying with the offense, I sometimes feel like they're just. I said this last week after Northwestern. Sometimes I feel like they're playing with their food a little bit, and I guess I felt that way a touch with the offense on the second drive of the game because you get down here, you have 1st and goal from the 4, first and goal from the 11, and they just seem to be like, we're just gonna establish the run. And I think, to your point, like I think they are saying, hey, let's make sure this line feels some confidence.
Yeah.
But then there is the risk of the inverse happening, where you get stopped, and then there is no confidence.
Sure.
So, clearly, that didn't seem to bother them. Will Howard continues to play like a man possessed.
He's been awesome in all 3 of the top 5. I mean, he's been awesome all year, but in the top 5 games they played, he's been incredible.
That throw to Emeka Egbuka right over here, I was in that corner, and I was like, that ball's intercepted. The minute he threw it, I was like, that ball's going to be picked off. And then somehow it was
great touch
on the decline, and it went back up over, like it rode the jet stream over the guy's hand right into. I don't think Emeka expected it there.
I think because normally you would. I think most quarterbacks, and maybe you're trained. I don't know. I'm not a coach. That's up to you. You're Coach Burnham.
Yeah.
Like most times you just see it and you throw towards the sideline. But it seemed Bill and I watched it a couple times, and it's like I think he was trying to throw away from the coverage towards maybe more of the actual back corner and not to the sideline.
No, I thought it was an incredible throw. He had another similar throw later in the game kind of on this side of the field here to Jeremiah, I think, where it was actually a really good defensive call from Indiana, because I think they felt the ball was going to go there. They dropped the defensive end right into the passing window, and Will just kind of feathered it over him again. Like he didn't have, I guess, maybe like the downfield stuff that he had last week, but it was incredibly accurate. He started, 14 for 14.
That can't be possible.
Down goes
how does an intentional grounding not count as an incompletion?
That's a Tathan +4.
How does an intentional grounding not count as an incompletion? And he threw 14 passes before the interception?
I'm just telling you what the box score
I just don't understand how. I was hearing that upstairs.
The box score was struggling.
They were having a hard time.
I was hearing it upstairs, but the intentional grounding was on the second drive of the game. There's no way he was 14-14.
I'm just telling you what the record book says, man.
I think it doesn't count as an incompletion because it's a penalty.
But you lose the down.
Yeah.
So the play counts.
Is Tate's record safe or not?
I don't know. I don't know why we're arguing. Will Howard did set a record, an Ohio State record, with his 6th game completing 80% or more of his passes. So, I know there's an element of folks that believe me and Berm, I don't know about Bill, that we gas up Will Howard too much. What more could you ask of this guy? He is playing, I think, some of the best passing quarterback, overall run game, management, all these things, best quarterbacking in college football, in my opinion.
He's been everything that I expected him to be, and then some for Ohio State, right? Like, if you don't think he's C.J. Stroud as a passer, that's fine. I don't know what else you want. Like, yes, he does. He does like one weird thing a game, and he did it again today.
The intentional grounding.
The intentional ground. It's like don't do that. I think he is good for one of those a game. And that's
what happened after that, though?
It's a little maddening, but then he's just locked in the rest of the game, and his progress as a passer throughout this year, I think, has been noticeable and impressive, and I think has vaulted him to that conversation of guys who are playing the position the best in the country right now. There's no runaway star at the quarterback position, in my opinion, and I think Will Howard is right there, and he's done everything that Ohio State has needed him to do, including play his best in the biggest games. And Ryan Day said afterward that he thinks maybe people are starting to see that Will Howard is a winner, and that's probably how I would describe him. Maybe he doesn't make a ton of wow plays, although I would maybe push back against that a little bit with the progress he's made, but I do think he makes winning plays more often than not.
If you don't think those are wow plays, like the 3rd and 35 to Emeka Egbuka, that throw, the
fourth, that went to the Colonel.
To Colonel Tate. The 4th and 10 to Carnell the next play. A 25-yard pass that he threw to Emeka Egbuka in the second half. I want to do, the old NFL skills competitions? Mm-hmm. I want Will Howard in the 25 yards and in, because the dude hits everything.
Yeah, he's really accurate. Intermediate.
So, there's nothing you can say about him. There's nothing you can say about Will that we haven't said over and over. And I think he's absolutely the right guy to lead Ohio State back into this building next week against Michigan. But and I feel like you could have nothing but confidence with Will.
Yep.
Here's what I think's happening, Bill. He was so confident about Ohio State winning easily, and he's so rarely optimistic Berm on game day. Once that happened, now he's like, uh-oh, it's time for the game. I got to get back.
I get it. Yeah, it's
Michigan week.
No matter what form Michigan is in, it is a different energy.
Well, especially because the one thing Indiana seemed to do pretty okay today was just run straight up the middle, and Ohio State struggled to tackle. Not necessarily they were in the right spots. It was just a lot of missed tackles again. And if you're Michigan, right, and now it's Michigan week now, that's the one way that they can beat you, is if they just
but they also don't threaten you on the outside the same way that Indiana does.
Perhaps not.
I don't think Ohio State's going to play with a light box against Michigan.
Did you happen to notice that it was pretty much any time that Ohio State brought in their lighter defensive ends, that's when Indiana just ran up the middle? It seemed like they checked to it every single time.
They were not afraid to do that. I mean, when they get favorable situations and matchups, they were well coached. I think that happened some with the personnel grouping where Lathan Ransom would come off the field and Lorenzo Styles Jr. would go out there. Like Curtis Rourke early on was like, I'm going to take that opportunity. Those players are not the same to Indiana, and they didn't produce at the same rate. So I found that a little unusual. It's not something, Bill, that we've seen a ton this year. Again, that's falling right back into the nitpick part, but I feel like
it's game week. We got a nitpick.
I feel like Lathan Ransom has to be on the field for every snap that he's healthy for.
Yeah, I don't like taking him off the field. I guess my view on it is that I think Indiana's offense is good, and it's hard for any defense to take away everything. And the thing that concerns you from Indiana is their ability to throw the ball down the field. So you're going to protect against that. And if that means Indiana's going to get some rushing production, then so be it. Like, I think Justice Ellison might have averaged 4 yards a carry. I am totally okay with that. And next week when you play Michigan, it's a flipped game script, right? Michigan wants to run the ball, so you're just going to play your 3 linebackers. You're going to be stout at the line of scrimmage, and I just think it's a totally different game. I don't know that I'm taking anything from this and trying to apply it to Michigan because the offenses are not nearly the same.
No, but that's why, I mean, coming into this Indiana game, I've said it over and over this week, the Michigan-Indiana game, as soon as I saw that, I'm like, okay, this game will not be close. Like, this one in here today was not going to be close. And you could see what Michigan was doing to Indiana. And Ohio State, when we talked about bold predictions, you asked, like, how confident are we about the defensive line taking over this game? And I said, like, a 6, but I also thought it was because the entire defense was going to blitz. And, boy, Cody Simon, what a day.
Fantastic day for Cody Simon. Really good game, I thought, from Sonny Styles as well. Those guys are really coming into their own, and Jim Knowles seems to have, like, no fear whatsoever about using them to blitz and wreak havoc. I think that's maybe not as necessary next week in the game, but certainly would be if you handle business there and get to Indianapolis against Oregon. That's going to have to be and they look completely different than they did a month and a half ago. I think you're seeing the fruits of that labor right now for the Ohio State defense. They're playing at a really high level. So Cody Simon is in there. Caleb Downs somehow made it this far into snap judgments and didn't mention the punt return. 79 yards, ends up right here. That hadn't happened. It's almost 10 years to the day against Indiana on the way to a national championship. Mentioned Will Howard, Emeka Ibuka. There's a lot of guys. Like, we focused on some of the nitpicking. Again, that's the angst maybe of getting ready to go into the game week. But there are so many positives, and Ohio State got so many contributions, like from 10 other guys that I didn't even name.
It's a really good win. Like, I'm not here necessarily to nitpick much of anything off of what I saw today. When you play a good team, sometimes they're going to move the ball and have some success. And Indiana did it for a drive and then didn't have any the rest of the game. And then, like, Ohio State's, like, I thought Ohio State's offensive line, like, played an okay game, right? There was some stuff in the run game. They were giving up some penetration. Quinshawn Judkins and Travion Henderson both had to make some pretty nifty moves in the backfield to get away from unblocked defenders. Like, it wasn't the cleanest offensive line game I've ever seen, but they were good enough against a defensive front that throws a lot at you. I also thought, and I figured this would be the case coming into the game, that in the second half, there was a little more movement because Indiana's not a super deep team on defense. So, like, I thought those guys got comfortable. I think you have to allow them some time to do that, even though Carson Hinsman did start 12 games last year and Austin Sarabel started 2 to start this year, that it is a reconfigured group that has to learn how to play with each other, the exception of Josh Fryer and Tegra Shabola, right? So I would understand, I guess, any fears that might come out of this, looking at the offensive line and thinking about Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant and those guys on Michigan next week. And Ohio State's offensive line will have to play better against that group than it did today. But I also feel like this defense is positioned to go win that game for them next week if they have to do it too.
What Ryan Day mentioned upstairs at the postgame that he wanted to put an exclamation point on the game with the final touchdown. And I think that's fair because I think he was being honest.
Yeah.
But I wish he would have lied and just said they needed to work on the QB sneak with Carson Hinsman at center.
I think it actually really good because so the couple short yardage, like, we were up in the press box, like, where's the QB sneak? Where's the QB sneak? Yeah. Not like factoring in my mind that they have a new center and how important the center is to that operation. So I actually think it ends up working out really well for them that they got to run it twice down there on the goal line and punctuate the win.
Yeah, I think the punctuation was, we overanalyze psychology of Ryan Day all the time. But especially once it got to be within 24 hours of kickoff and he was standing right over here in that tunnel talking to Pat McAfee, that's some of Berm what we have talked about, where he got incredibly he didn't say this specifically. I think Ohio State was incredibly annoyed by the Curt Cignetti attention, the focus on Indiana, the notion that there was this feel-good story and that people would want to see them beat Ohio State. I think that translated to the way, certainly you saw the Will Howard celebration at the end, stamping out the cigarette. I think Ohio State did get a little.
You didn't see it.
did get some of their edge and their chippiness, not just because this was a top 5 game, but because of this notion that somehow everyone wanted to see them lose to Indiana.
I think it's beautiful.
Take it however you can get it.
Let's get some guys who hate each other in the Big Ten again. I think that's a brilliant idea.
Yeah.
I don't think that the Indiana feel-good story is over. They won 10 games for the first time in program history. They're going to win 11 games. They're very likely.
They're going to win by a lot.
They're very likely going to be in the playoff. Like their feel-good story is not over. But what today was a reminder that talent wins football games. And Ohio State,
I think that's why they won't make the playoff.
I mean, I guess Ole Miss losing today helps their cause. There's other things that are.
Yeah.
Ohio State.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, we have spent a lot of time in the last year and a half harping on the lack of special teams big play for Ohio State. And just to go back to the punt return, but now that's 3 straight weeks where a play has happened on a punt inside of the 10-yard line, put Ohio State in scoring position.
Right where we are. Yeah.
You get the punt return, and sometimes when you have the freaky athletes, the guys who are just different, you need the special teams to do something to let the rest of the team catch up. Yeah. And Ohio State got that today when, Indiana gets the ball with 4 minutes to go in the first half in a 7-7 game. They get the ball at the start of the second half. If they scored on that drive, then all of a sudden you are entering a very different second half. And, Ohio State gets the break because the guy drops the snap. It was really wet out here. It was weird.
Was it raining? I couldn't actually tell in the press box.
It was not just raining. It was like a fine mist for about 25 minutes. And my equipment was drenched. I mean, it was definitely wet. And so the Buckeyes get a break there, and then Caleb Downs makes a break. And that's the difference, I think. Sometimes we've seen Ohio State be content to pick up that ball on the bounce and just get down. And Caleb Downs said,
or just let it roll. I mean,
right.
But even on the botch snap, they were coming after that punt too, right?
Lathan. So I took note. They put Lathan Ransom out there for that. We'd seen Caden Curry the last couple of weeks. So you also have that on film. Indiana has seen what they did against Purdue and Northwestern, getting a block and then, a botch snap that 2 weeks in a row they had created something because Ohio State has put a different emphasis on its personnel. Yeah. But I don't believe in either of the last 2 weeks that Lathan Ransom was being used in that exact spot. I'll have to go back and double check.
I haven't seen him on punt block.
I think Indiana saw that before the snap. Was like, whoa, something's cooking here. We need to be aware and alert. And then they botched another detail.
That's why I'm not trying to give Ohio State credit for it, but I do wonder if that new look just sped things up at all, or got the punter's eyes up at all, or you never know. I know it was wet too, and it was a hard ball to handle, but I just think the way they're talking about special teams more than anything is interesting to me. Even how Ryan Day described the Caleb Downs punt return, it wasn't just, wow, Caleb Downs is really good. It was no, we put Jermaine Matthews and Denzel Burke out there to be the jammers because we thought those guys would give Caleb Downs more time to make a play on special teams. It's just it's about time, right? They started talking that way, and I think we had this conversation a couple weeks ago, but now you're kind of seeing the fruits of it.
It's been a decade in the making.
Long time coming. This isn't the time to talk about the Jermaine Matthews, Davison Igbinosun debate that probably needs to happen, right? I mean, that's a midweek conversation.
I bet we'll talk about it on Monday.
Because I don't know what the kid can do. I mean, the first one, it was both of the guys fighting, and the second one, again.
The thing is, they are penalties.
No, they are. And that's, I get it. He's getting called for every one of them. Bennett Christian, for the second straight week, has been tackled over the middle.
It's true.
And it's fine.
Davison Igbinosun is on both sides of the coin.
It's really bad break for him. So, really bad luck for Davison Igbinosun.
Yeah. But Jermaine Matthews, I thought, played very well. And he rotated in with both IGB and Denzel Burke in this game. I think that there is an awareness that Jermaine Matthews is improving and is a game-changing weapon for them, and that maybe it's a combination of all three, but I don't know. We'll see what that means for Ohio State getting into this next stretch, starting with the game a week from now. Another big noon kickoff. Great atmosphere again.
Yeah, great job.
Showed up. Ohio State fans were awesome. It was It was loud even at 8 a.m. when we pulled in.
If I could just offer one bit of, call it constructive criticism to the fans,
okay.
who I love. I am one of you. You all know this, so don't think I'm Berm's always talking down to the fans. You don't have to wait to be loud until the PA announcer says it's time to get loud, or like you can stay loud through when Indiana or Michigan's in the huddle, like you can be loud then as well.
Oh.
Like you're allowed to stay loud.
It's hard to hear in the press box. Like it really deafens the sound. Was it?
It was good.
Pretty live in
a
here.
Very good crowd.
Yeah, okay.
Excellent crowd.
Yeah, I think.
But like next week, we need to be sustained.
This place is going to be on fire.
I don't think that's going to be a problem, buddy.
Let's talk about sustained noise through the breaks, through the huddles. Okay, when we were in Oregon, they were cheering at halftime. Okay, no one left their seats at halftime in Oregon.
It was weird. Their pants.
They also didn't play knocker ball.
Everyone peed their pants.
Yeah.
Great job, fans.
Seems like a great way.
Big one coming up.
Great way to end.
Oh, can I just say this?
Of course you
I'm
can.
rambling.
Yeah.
There were people. I heard some conversation about, we're going to storm the field after today's game.
Hell no.
To wit, I'm like, no. So
I'm glad you stopped them.
Yeah, thank you, folks, for
the cops
not
were
doing
lined
that.
up in the tunnel.
I know. I was like, no way. Like next week, fine. Last game of the season, Michigan, Ohio State wins. It's yours, America. But until then, it's ours.
If you rush the field against Indiana, you can't come back from that.
It's tough. It's a tough look.
It's too far. Yeah. But that didn't happen. Ohio State ends the Hoosier hysteria 38-15 in here in the Horseshoe on a beautiful November Saturday. Thanks so much for joining us for some snap judgments. We'll have more coming on the notebook. We have a huge slate of content coming to get ready for the game, including both Roosters and a rivalry kickoff. We'll be recording both of those on Monday, so we'll get some of that information out. If you wanted to come out and hang out with us and talk some ball and get ready for the greatest rivalry in all of sports. That's not what I would call Ohio State and Indiana, but it was a great game, and it was a top 5 matchup. That's Bill Landis and Jeremy Birmingham. I am Austin Ward. These have been Snap Judgments on the podcast. We'll talk to you later.